What's up guys, my name is Ace, and Season 3 of Modern Warfare 3 did bring a brand new perk that I haven't gotten around to cover until now. This is the high gain antenna. So in today's video, we're going to be breaking this down in great detail since the description can be a little confusing, and it definitely took a bit of testing to clarify a few points. And diving in, since this has several different characteristics and effects, we're just going to go through point by point. And the first point here is the most straightforward one. When using this perk, the minimap is going to be zoomed out for you as well as nearby allies. And here is a representation of how much your minimap will zoom out, both with and without high gain antenna. It's also worth noting you get this exact same effect while using the CCT comms vest. This is a 40% increase to your coverage, which is very noticeable. This allows you to see exact location of enemies that would otherwise be just on the edge of your minimap. So instead of getting an indication of the direction they're in, now you get to pinpoint exactly where they are when they're firing an unsuppressed gun or if they're showing up due to a UAV. As for this working for nearby allies, if they're not using high gain antenna or the CCT comms vest, as soon as you get within about 18.5 to 19 meters, their minimap will also increase by 40%. And we can see that really clearly here. In this case, I'm not using the high gain antenna or the CCT comms vest, but my teammate is using the high gain antenna. And as soon as I get within about 18.5 to 19 meters, my minimap will suddenly zoom out. Now, personally, I'm not a huge fan of this effect. I do find it quite jarring as you're navigating the map and suddenly your minimap is changing size, and it's something that you can't even really control. The only way to control this is to use high gain antenna or CCT comms vest for yourself, because then it'll never zoom out any more than what you've made it zoom out. But that's just my opinion on that little feature. Now let's move on to the second point with the high gain antenna, and this one also works somewhat like the CCT comms vest, although it's a little different, and I'll point that out in a little bit. This one says, enemies firing unsilenced weapons remain on the minimap for longer for you and nearby allies if a nearby ally has a CCT comms vest perk. And the wording on this one's a little bit strange, and I thought it was just worded poorly, and as long as you are using this perk, the enemy dot will appear for longer, but it turns out that's not actually the case, and this description has to be taken literally. You will only see that dot appear longer if you're using high gain antenna and you have a teammate using the CCT comms vest that's within that 18.5 meter range of you. Now, if those conditions are met, the enemy dot will stick around for about half a second longer compared to not using this perk or not having a teammate with the CCT comms vest standing nearby you while you are using this perk. So yeah, that one's pretty crazy. It relies very heavily on your teammates and what they're doing, and if you have no teammates using the CCT comms vest, you simply don't get this benefit of your perk. And I disagree with that completely. I don't think you should have to rely so heavily on what your teammates are doing in order for certain aspects of your perk to do anything for you. And I really don't think it would be a problem or overpowered or anything if you just got that increased dot duration regardless of what your teammates are doing as long as you're using this perk. Now, it is worth noting in this case, if you're just using the CCT comms vest, you will get this perk all the time. You don't need another teammate using a CCT comms vest nearby for that to work. But you will need that if you're using the high gain antenna perk. And now let's move into the final set of benefits that you gain with the high gain antenna. And this is, you and nearby allies will be able to see nearby ally radar pings from Data Jacker. So if somebody's using the Data Jacker perk, or again, the CCT comms vest, when they kill an enemy player, they will drop a pack on the ground, and then when they pick that pack up, it will create a ping on the minimap from that location, and that ping can potentially pick up other enemies that are in the area. Now, if you aren't using this perk and a teammate does that, it's only that teammate that's using Data Jacker or the CCT comms vest that's going to see that for themselves. However, when you are using high gain antenna, if that teammate picks that pack up within that 18.5 to 19 meter range of you, then you will also get to see that same ping that that teammate is seeing. Now, if they're outside of that 18.5-ish meter range, then you're not going to be able to see that ping. It's only going to be working for them. So again, you do have to stick fairly close to your teammates for this to actually apply. And then finally, on top of that Data Jacker working, when using the high gain antenna, you will also see the compass indicator from nearby ally signal jammers. And for those that aren't aware of what this looks like, if the enemy has like a claymore or some piece of equipment down on the ground, when using the signal jammer perk, as soon as you get within about 12 meters of that, you'll notice on the compass on the top of your screen, a little dot appears. So in this case, when you're using the high gain antenna If you have a teammate within that roughly 18.5 meter range of you that is using Signal Jammer, then you will also gain the benefit of that Signal Jammer. You will be able to see that piece of equipment on the compass. This one is very minor. I think it's quite rare that people are using Signal Jammer, and even if they are, typically things are happening fast enough that you don't have time to see that little dot on your compass while you're navigating the map. But again, this is just another situation where this high gain antenna perk relies very heavily on what your teammates are doing. And that's why, when it comes to my final thoughts on this perk, I really don't like how they've handled this overall. The one nice thing I have to say about it is the fact that it zooms out the mini-map for yourself, and that is a great perk to have. Outside of that though, every other benefit that you gain from the high gain antenna relies 100% on what your teammates are doing. And while it is kind of an interesting idea on paper to have interactions like this, in practice, in Call of Duty at least, this is just useless in my opinion. I think this type of thing would work really well in like a hero shooter where you have a good distribution of players that are playing in different roles and they're sort of forced into a certain hero type. That could work quite well. This would be a nice complement to that. But that's not how Call of Duty tends to play. And in my experience at least, it's very rare to find somebody on my team using the CCT comms vest. And therefore, in the vast majority of games that I play, if I want to use the high gain antenna, the only benefit I'm actually going to see is that zoomed out mini-map for myself. And when you stack that against the other perks in that tier, that's not even remotely close to being good enough to ever want to use this perk. Now, on the other hand, if you are playing with a coordinated team, like if you're playing in a party with people and you decide to designate certain people using the CCT comms vest, and then other people can use a high gain antenna, then sure, I could maybe see some utility in this, especially on like the small map playlist where it's very likely that you're going to be within that 18 to 19 meter range of your teammate. But that's just so situational, and I don't think perks in Call of Duty should be based so heavily on what your teammates are doing. And like I said earlier, especially with that second point with the high gain antenna, with enemy dots appearing for a longer period of time if they fire an unsuppressed weapon, I don't think that would be broken at all to just include that by default on the perk. And in that case, at least there would be a bit more of a reason to use this perk over the others in the same tier. Now, obviously in the case of stacking with Data Jacker and Signal Jammer, I get it, those ones kind of have to rely on teammates and what they're doing. And as a bonus, sure, I think that would be fine to leave as is. But in its current state, I really think the high gain antenna is just not worth using. Again, unless you're playing in a coordinated squad on a small map playlist and you have people that are designated as CCT comms vest users. Now, of course, these are just my opinions on how they handled high gain antenna, and this is where I want to hear from you guys in those comments down below. First off, what do you guys think about the benefit of increased minimap coverage? Do you think a 40% increase to your minimap coverage is enough with that? And do you like the fact that it works for nearby teammates? And second, what do you think about the fact that this perk relies so heavily on what your teammates are doing and using on their class setups? Do you think elements like this have a good place in Call of Duty? Do you think this is an interesting idea that you'd like to see them continue forward with, maybe with other perks in the future? Or do you agree with me? Do you think this is the type of thing that just doesn't fit in Call of Duty? Just let me know all of the thoughts down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.